What up? Welcome to Homegrown Hustle, where local brilliance takes the center stage. I'm your host, Matt Eichmann. Together, we're about to embark on an inspiring journey. Our community thrives on the wisdom of insightful leaders that are right here in our backyard. And we're bringing their expertise to your ears. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your guide. Join us every week in celebrating innovation, guidance, and the power to inspire greatness. Let's explore the stories that shape our local business landscape, and together, let's ignite the spark of excellence. Welcome to the Homegrown Hustle podcast. I'm here with Alex Bulmer, founder of Three Pillars Bookkeeping. He's owned and ran multiple food-related businesses that we're going to get into. Super excited about this one. Thanks for finally getting on here. How you doing today, Alex?
I'm good. Yourself?
I'm doing really well. So currently you've got a couple businesses that you're running, right?
Correct.
Right here in Forest Lake, you got Big Apple Bagel, and you've been running that with your wife for
14 years.
14 years. And then you started Three Pillars right in the middle of COVID, right?
A week before COVID.
So you were starting businesses before it was cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but before that, you kind of you've grown up and just been part of business since you were young, right?
Basically,
take it to the beginning.
I grew up with a family business, a painting contracting business that my dad had for many years, learned how to work there, and then wanted to run my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in high school, I managed a McDonald's, helped out there, traveled a little bit with that, loved the business side of it, wanted to own a McDonald's, didn't have the money or the cash to do it, so found Subway through a family friend and jumped on board there, bought into that, grew that, and eventually sold that and bought Big Apple.
So just transition after transition. So how many years did your pops run painting?
Still is.
Still running it.
Yeah.
And then, so was there something that you saw over at McDonald's, that was different?
Love the operational side and the training and the people aspect of it. So really they're in the training. They train more people than the trains.
So really?
Yep.
Fascinating. I did not expect some type of random piece of information like that to come from today, but here you are right off the bat dropping that on me. So you're telling me they're training more human beings than the U.S. Army?
Correct.
I might need to fact check that one. But so through that, you said you also traveled with McDonald's. I feel like those are counterintuitive.
Yeah. So basically there was, way back when, there was a franchise side and then the corporate side. So I was on the corporate side. So I ended up traveling to a couple other stores and help open them up and help training their new staff.
Okay. So from the ground up, kind of, there's somebody purchases a franchise.
Yep.
You go in, and then what were some of the hurdles that you had to help these, new business owners, right? New businesses overcome?
Basically, it's just creating the business from scratch. So a lot of people that don't really know anything about the back end and running a store.
So we're talking obviously getting the building established, all of the systems and processes.
I was more on the operations.
So you would show up and what would you do? Would you be there for 90 days, 6 months?
It was a few weeks. So that first couple weeks of opening, we would help out with training the staff and getting them kind of up and running.
So that kind of your skill set, that coaching, training?
I think it was. I did love helping the young kids and kind of helping them evolve and getting those different skill sets.
So was it the recruiting side as well? Or
no, didn't have to do
just
any
the
of that.
training?
Yeah,
okay.
just the training.
So you're coming in and saying, all right, here's the system. This is how we run this business.
Yep.
Here's the people.
Yep.
And then you make sure that they learn that. So what are some of the things that McDonald's does really well that people maybe don't know to help their people get trained?
Everything is very documented. Everything is very structured. So everything has a process and a procedure behind every single thing that they do. How they put the mustard, the ketchup, or how long they cook the fries, or how the restaurants are kind of.
So are there layers to that information about the really granular stuff that maybe the person that's doing it doesn't know, where the manager or the teacher does know that? Or is everybody kind of learning
why.
There's
And
definitely the layers and the things that you see. And so you kind of learn that as you kind of grow up in there. Another fun, the movie Founder also kind of outlays it a little bit too, which is really fascinating.
McDonald's, I mean, they've done something right from a business standpoint, right? They've scaled and kind of
But they're also really not in the restaurant business. They're in the
real
estate business. Correct.
which is a wrinkle that people always throw in there, but still, yet the business of McDonald's is still massive. So there's a lot of moving parts there. So from that, you are like, all right, I like foot long subs. I'm gonna go start.
Let's go for it.
But let's fire up a couple Subways. What area was that in? Was that in the Twin Cities here?
Yeah, South Metro.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you fired those up and kind of similar, right?
Yep.
Like similar process. There's kind of
Yep. One was already existing, and then we started another one.
So the franchise model, like, what does that give a potential entrepreneur, like through your experience? Because you've done it time and time again, right?
I would say it definitely gives them a healthy base of, how maybe to buy the ingredients in there. And if it's a restaurant, how to kind of do basic operations, how to kind of get them from A to maybe middle of the alphabet and somewhere in there.
Okay.
Doesn't bring them to the end. They still have to figure out how to make it profitable. And, that's just making sure that they're watching all their different controllables, watching their costs, training the people correctly, and kind of watching that business.
Okay. And so then through your experience at McDonald's, like, was there things that now when you're starting up your own business, really,
Yes.
like things that you took and you're like, okay, I'm going to take this from McDonald's and I can apply it, but there's limitations here that this franchise is structured differently, so they don't necessarily apply?
Yes and no. I would say the biggest thing is anything that I try to do, I try to make them process driven, not people driven. So anytime you have something that is more a person driven, the business or that individual is solely dependent on that person. If it is process driven, anyone can kind of step into that position and take over and do that going forward. So you have a lot more leverage, I would say, or just flexibility because people kind of come and go, especially right now these days. It's the amount of people the amount of jobs people have is insane.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity out there,
Correct.
which is great. But with that, as a business owner, there's churn in the workplace that you have to fill. If you can't either maintain that culture that makes people want to stay there, you need to ensure that you can quickly train somebody and make sure that the wheel doesn't have to get reinvented. So, like, what are the core things you got to do to make sure that those processes are documented?
Looking and documenting. Looking at process from start to finish. Okay, what exactly are all the steps to maybe train that person on how to do it, how it's going to get done, how it's going to be documented, how things are going to get fixed. So if there's errors or issues, how that's going to get resolved. And I would say the key thing is when people are trying to sell their business, having that process for that business. So having it process driven versus employee driven or person driven can really help sell their business very fast.
What do you mean?
Basically a turnkey operation. So you can have that business, basically anyone step into that business, being able to, that new owner get to say, hey, great job. We're going to take over your business and here's some money. We'll take over your business and then be able to run it as well or better.
Because everything is
previous owner
documented for them to learn and apply.
Correct.
Okay. So essentially that's like the same concept of like the franchise, right? Like all those processes are documented. So from the beginning of your business journey, you've kind of like hooked on to that.
Yes.
So you exited Subway after a while, and then now here's another franchise, Big Apple, and there's a little bit of history tied in with Big Apple here to Forest Lake, right? Could you kind of tell like that full story and then how it ties in with you?
Yeah, a local financial provider actually started the IPO out of Forest Lake, so back in the late 90s.
So is it like a Minnesota-based company then?
It is not. Chicago-based, actually.
Okay, so then late 90s, it's the homie that did the IPO, the Wolf of Wall Street. It's down here on Lake Street or something, which is cool.
Yeah.
And So from that, you get this opportunity offered to you. Were you still running the Subways at that point?
Transitioning out of Subway, and I was looking for something. I actually found it through a business broker. So kind of like a real estate broker. They have them for business as well. So I called the broker and said, hey, I'm looking for something. I was way down south, Metro, and this kind of hit the list. And I looked at it, came up here, enjoyed a sandwich, and kind of took a look at the operations and kind of enjoyed it.
So when you say looking for something,
I was looking for the next business that I wanted to own.
And did you know it was going to be in food?
Did not.
No.
No.
But yet here you are, 5 food businesses later, and you're still doing it, right? So Big Apple opened the doors to some wholesale you were doing for a bread company, and then also, but like I feel like you've done like besides like the manufacturing and distribution, like all the other parts of like the consumer food chain.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of it, we were working with grocery stores and other restaurants and coffee shops to kind of help push our product into those facilities and help them out with their needs. So that's what I really enjoyed, was talking with those other business owners and helping them out with those products.
So tell me about the life of a business owner that owns and operates either franchise or restaurant, because you've seen both sides of it.
Yeah, it's long. It's doesn't really stop. My brain doesn't stop. Wherever I go, I see, all right, what could I relate to my business or other businesses around me? How do they do it? What did they do right? What are they doing wrong? Is there something that I could pick up and kind of move into my operations that I like? Or is there something like, hey, they're doing this wrong. Am I doing that wrong too? How can I fix that?
So are you bringing things in from other industries then with that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So from all of this, you've had to kind of learn the bookkeeping side of things, right? And then that opened the doors to Three Pillars. So tell me about like some of the thought process you had.
So throughout I also had a bar restaurant. So when I was running that.
Don't forget about that.
Yeah. So I was helping running that. So I was kind of managing the books on that side, managing the books for the bagel store. And then I was actually kind of helping consulting on the side as well for some other businesses. And I just really enjoyed the books. And so wanted to do more of that. Ended up selling my portion of the bar, and my time freed up, so I wanted to do something else. And I'm like, well, let's go do more of the bookkeeping and the payroll, the business services. And so basically that started. I walked into a networking group, and that was the start of the business.
So really, it's just supporting businesses of different levels. That's kind of like your track record. You're supporting these businesses, whether it's your own or a partnership that you have or the McDonald's. You've kind of been doing that, and then like the financial, the numbers. That's kind of like the system that like every business has to have, right?
It all comes down to the numbers. Every business is money in, money out. It's just how do they manage it? How can they process, the back end of the business to make it successful and profitable?
So how have you seen some people like over the years be like run successful, profitable businesses? Like what are the things that they do? That's important.
That's important.
File your taxes, and pay your taxes.
That can get people in trouble very fast. The other thing is looking at their KPIs, so their key performance indicators, having a scorecard. I see a lot of businesses operate their business without knowing the score of their game, meaning kind of parallel with a sports game. No one wants to go to a sports game without knowing the score. We want to see who's winning. And I think a lot of businesses operate that way, especially for the employees. Employees don't know how they're doing, how the business is doing. So it's kind of pushing that forward to the employees and the owners to kind of watch what's going on.
But if the owner never knows that, how do the employees ever do that?
Don't.
Like if you're a business owner that's running in circles and kind of like in the oh shit mode when it's tax season because you don't really know what's going to happen, it's kind of like shooting in the dark almost. Like how do you actually know where you're going? Do you deal with a lot of businesses that are kind of in that phase where they're running businesses because they're selling things and making money coming in, but all like once the ins happened, there's almost like no system.
Correct.
And you like, is that as common as I think
common.
it is in my mind?
I would say probably 8 out of 10 businesses don't really know what their numbers are.
Why?
No one has taught them. They don't know the difference between not knowing the numbers and knowing their numbers, so they don't see sometimes the value in that.
What is the difference?
Successful or non-successful.
And like understanding too, right? Like having some confidence and basis for that emotional component to like what it takes to be a business owner. Right. Like I know there's been times where I've just been completely oblivious to that, and I've been the messy business owner. Yeah. But I got to go sell some shit and make sure we get some squirrel traps set up.
Exactly. Or if you're trying to expand and trying to go get a loan, the loan officer's going to look at your Excel sheet per se and say, yeah, go take a hike. This ain't going to work.
If there's even an Excel sheet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there a size, like whether it's employees or volume, where you see that like, okay, Mr. Business Owner, you really can't do this yourself? Or like from Jump Street, like what we did, we just started up with an accountant and bookkeeper right from the beginning because I knew this is not the thing that excites me whatsoever, and I'm not good at it. So both of those things.
Yeah, I would say, we've worked with a lot of companies that are pre-revenue. So even like in your case, before they even kind of make that first dollar, structuring it correctly, because there's some of the fundamentals of the legal side of the business is very important. Then it's the structure of the accounting side, and then it's just kind of the cost analysis and figuring out how to get them profitable.
Is that the three pillars?
Operations, finance, sales, and marketing are the 3 pillars.
I like the sales and marketing one. That's kind of my favorite.
So I mean, to get back to your other question is what size? It could be pre-revenue, but on average, if they're making $100,000, do they really need someone to help out with the books? Sometimes not. Depends on how that owner is. Sometimes that owner can help manage it. Maybe they just need help setting it up, and then they can manage it go forward. Or maybe they outgrow it. So when businesses are growing, your skills need to grow with your business, and a lot of times, what got you there won't get you to the next step. And I see that a lot too, where, they think they can, just because it worked last year doesn't mean it's going to work the next time. So that happens a lot with the bookkeeping too. Well, I managed my business last year without a budget. I can do it this year too.
But if your business is going to be bigger, there's going to be some type of unknown there.
Or COVID.
Right?
COVID was a great example of that. What did that do to most businesses? Turned them upside down.
So how did you navigate that with starting up a business? I mean, it was smart. You did that. Yeah. Like I got to do some other business right before this super terrible thing for the food industry happens.
It was probably a blessing and a curse at the same time. I think it was more of a blessing because it was a great time to start it. Everyone was going remote, so that was really nice. And I think people just needed the help. There's a lot of different programs out there that they couldn't understand. They didn't know who to turn to. So having someone to ask questions and get those answers that they needed were very beneficial to them.
So all those new questions, you became the source of, like a source for that. Yeah. And at that point, you're just doing bookkeeping, right?
Yeah.
And you're not niched just within like the food service. You're kind of doing all the stuff.
Yeah. We have all the different industries, technology, medical, restaurants, retail, you name it, we have it.
And how do you get new customers for that business? I mean, bookkeeping, please don't take offense to this. This is really, like, in my mind, the only thing that's less exciting than pest control.
Is bookkeeping?
Yeah.
It is. It's very...
But it's so important.
It is.
Just like pest control. But so, like, with that, like, if you're trying to say, okay, Mr. Business Owner that's messy or busy or you're brand new, like, how do we get in front of those people and, like... Yeah. What are they attracted to?
Sometimes it's networking. So it's other business owners attract other business owners. So just talking to other business owners will naturally get you in front of other ones. So that's been very beneficial. Or referrals. So, hey, when someone starts a business, most of the time they try to talk to someone else about it. And if they know of us, they're like, oh, well, you should talk to Three Pillars. They can help you out with that. And that's kind of where we get most of our clients is referrals.
Well, and from like a knowledge standpoint, that's one of the most complex areas of any business is the finance component.
Absolutely.
So when it comes to outsourcing of services or like business items, like in my mind, that's one of the first things that you do, because like all you have to do is be able to communicate with one company or one individual what the expenses, really a lot of the expenses and a little bit of the revenue quality and like items there, but what were these for? Were these business? Were these not? Right?
Yep, absolutely.
And so the scenarios you run into, and like my guess is it's probably like ugly ones.
Those are the most fun
That
because you can just
sucks.
take their 20 different boxes and give them information that makes sense.
So where does it become ugly? Is it like you just ignored this for so long, or are there like things that people just overlook?
They love to bury their head in the sand. I'll deal with that later. I don't know enough. I don't need to do that. We won't file taxes. We won't do this. There's just a lot of, they get too busy in their day to day and they'll either do it later or just not at all. They'll just kind of keep going with their business.
So let's just say you're going to do it yourself. Like what's the bare minimum? Like what are the things that you have to do on a monthly or quarterly basis?
Reconcile out all of your accounts. So that's
Take notes, people.
Yeah, so that's reconciling all your accounts. So every credit card, every bank account, every bank loan, anything that happens within the business needs to be documented and closed out at the end of the month. So you're matching the statements with what hits your books. So making sure that they're the same. And most of the time they are not. Where things kind of come
That would be too convenient.
right? QuickBooks is a great program. People think that it does it itself. Yes.
To a degree.
To a degree, there is parts of it that are automated, but it's not just set it and forget it. It's not the old cooker thing where you put the meat in there and run away.
Is there a component to, and this is just like in theory, like your personal opinion, where business owners like don't want to look at the finances because it's something that they're like emotionally tied with because it's kind of their business and maybe like uncertain of the success or failure of that, so they just ignore it. Like it's kind of like psychology based almost.
Yeah, it's too stressful, so it's too stressful. I'm going to push it away, and then they keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and then you fast forward and they haven't done anything.
Sounds like a psychological disorder.
It really is, and it's knowing and understanding your numbers on a regular basis is sometimes just, especially if you have an issue within the business, because it's not if issues are going to happen, it's when and what they are, especially in the financial side. Because whether it's COVID or, you want to hire a new employee, or maybe you have an employee that's stealing. You don't know until you look at the numbers.
How do you know what numbers?
Talking to professionals about your industry and what's kind of going on within your business.
Like coaches, consultants, peers, all that. So just seeking it out. Something I know you're really good at. Part of it, I think you do naturally, but also like for your business, it's like what you have to do to grow it, right?
Correct.
So with like those startup people, are there things that people think they have to know before or during the startup that actually like aren't important at all?
I would say knowing and understanding your business is probably the most fundamental. And sometimes they don't understand the different impacts of, okay, if I increase my sales X, what other costs are going to happen because of that? So it's cause and effect. So knowing everything has a cause and effect in the business, whether it's financial, people, infrastructure, or whatever it may be, it's knowing those ripples and understanding those ripples is very important.
And really being able to like think about how the money moves through the business and like the impacts that it has.
Or maybe it's just, maybe you're selling some sort of good. How much goods am I going to need? How much product to produce that product do I need? Okay, how do I finance that? When do I get paid? How do I charge for that? Am I charging the correct amount? How many units do I need to produce to maybe make a profit?
And a lot of this information's out there though, but like the resources within specific industries, that's really where people can move the needle and not just be
Correct.
lost.
Yeah. So we have resources on our end where we can see by their NICS code, which is a government code for each kind of industry within their in their business. We can kind of see the below average and above average, kind of where they are in different ratios. So we can measure the business on, are they doing above average?
Like
or are they doing
benchmark
below?
revenue or profitability or what?
It's more profitability, or it could be revenue, but it's more on the kind of the costs. Maybe it's labor, so cost of goods. Maybe it is just how much their product is costing them. Maybe it's debt structure. Are they over leveraging their business or under in certain industries?
So a lot of people are just like shooting from the hip and just
are.
like if they can get somebody to give them the money or validate the purchase of something, they do it, and they don't actually understand anything from like what the financial story says.
That's the fun part of a business owner. They just run. They just,
Yeah, it's why
Yes.
it's why they're where they're at, but
Exactly.
they freaking fall on their face if they get audited by the IRS and now they can't run.
Yeah, they can't, or they're trying to get a loan. And that's kind of when we see them a lot. Okay, maybe they got some letters from the state or the feds. Maybe they're trying to get a loan, or maybe they're trying to sell. There's some sort of change in their business that they want to do that the finances inhibit that.
So they're like trying to grow. They've reached the end of their leash. Aren't they like proactive people that like come to you like this?
Yeah, maybe 10, 15%.
And so what are those 10 to 15% thinking and seeing in a relationship with you that like the people that would rather ignore it aren't?
So now they're talking about budgeting, forecasting, figuring out how to make their business go from, profitable to uber profitable. What they can tweak and change. It's just those little tiny percent changes that can change their business very dramatically.
So like how do you go about having those conversations, like the budgeting and forecasting? If that's like, because that to me sounds like a little bit more advanced, right? So if that's a newer business,
Newer ones are harder because they don't have the track record. So you definitely need some sort of track record, or maybe they're a pre-revenue, and so they're just managing what they want to spend the money on versus blowing money on a $80,000 truck that they want to buy.
so they start with the end in mind, the whole Napoleon Hill thing, right?
Correct.
That's the one of the key indicators of somebody that's gonna have some like financial business trauma.
Yeah, absolutely. Another great book for beginning owners is Profit First.
Love that book.
Yeah, that's another great one where it just kind of helps and forces them to kind of have that saving structure and the structure behind when they create revenue.
So the profit first model, it does something where it kind of requires you to think deeper about like the granular items and interactions in a business, right? Like, because it goes real big picture, like we want to make money. That's the goal. It kind of starts with that, right? Profit first. And then from there, it talks about like all the other things and then how to really put it in buckets. And that's the model that we run financially to ensure that we're managing spend. And all it really does is it reverse engineers and like predetermines a budget for certain categories within every business.
Absolutely. Talks about the Parkinson's law. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah,
but yeah,
things that
basically.
expand to take the amount of time you give them.
Correct.
The procrastination law, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I talk about that with our team all the time, but like if you never think about the profit, it's hard to like get it. There's very few models where you can like just wing it and make profit.
Or you can do it for a year and then you think, going forward, you can
I'll
keep
do that
doing
again.
it. Yeah. Things change.
Well, because that's the thing with business. Like anyone, like a lot of businesses can have a good year or two, but the consistency requires like a ramp up almost, right? Because like the growth is required with inflation and everything else going on in the economy. If we're not growing these businesses, well, then we're going to cease to exist pretty soon, right? Is that 10 to 15% thinking like that? Are they usually that growth minded?
They are a little bit growth minded. They are a little bit more paranoid.
In what way?
What could go wrong? I don't want to create an issue. I want to make this successful, and I want this to be done right. It's not, let's just wing it and run.
And it's not, let's hire a bookkeeper, check the box, and be gone. Because there still has to be a level of engagement, right?
And we've seen that too, where we've had a number of businesses where they think we're just anything to do with a piece of paper. It's our job.
So like handing you shoe boxes and stuff.
Say, this is a piece of paper. You deal with it. You manage it. I'm just going to go do what I need to do. But what happens is they still don't know their fundamentals of their business, what's driving their business. They don't understand the numbers or taking the time to even look at them.
And are you looking at these like as a percent of revenue, or like how do you recommend people look at their numbers when it comes to like expenses? And
yeah, a lot of percentage wise. So you want to look at percentage versus just dollar wise. Dollar wise is great to kind of get you to those benchmarks, but comparing in percentage is very important year over year.
Why?
And that's because, well, look at inflation right now. Inflation's going crazy. So, a dollar today was maybe 50 cents last year or whatever.
That's a kick in the nuts right there.
Right. Let's just say that. So, yes, hey, I doubled my sales, but also what else increased? Well, your labor increased and your cost of goods increased. Maybe your electric increased and all these other things increased. So that dollar basically just went away. But if you look at by percentage wise, what your costs are divided by your revenue, so to get a percent, you can see a lot more parallels and kind of see the examples kind of coming up.
And then as the businesses grows or shrinks, like you can see as a percent of 100, which is this never changing, like full revenue number, like how much of that gets cut up.
Correct.
If you're cutting up too much, well, then you got to increase prices. You got to change something.
Yep.
Are there businesses that are like just easier to manage financially? Like there's less attention that has to be put there, or are the similarities so much that like other than the actual material, they're all kind of the same?
I would say service industries are probably the most common. So whether that is, you are selling yourself, you're performing some sort of service or doing something and selling your time. That is probably one of the easiest ones because it's a little bit more black and white versus a product business or ones with multiple employees or kind of more complex businesses.
So you're talking like blue collar?
Blue collar. Your plumber. You're installing a water heater. Your water heater is X and your time is worth X. That's what you charge. But now you multiply having employees in there, a warehouse in there, extra trucks in there, extra insurance, all these little things that add up very quickly, but kind of get lost.
Yeah, well, because and as you're growing, it takes time and attention to be able to keep track of all that and just organize, especially when people have things running through their business account. I got my Disney Plus set up on the business Amex, like all that kind of nonsense, right?
Probably another big mistake I see is the mixing between personal and business expenses or income. So they're mixing, commingling.
It's just like one big pot.
And that's very bad.
Why?
Legally wise, I'm not a lawyer, but ask any lawyer and they'll say, yeah, do not do that. Because now you're basically putting up all your business assets open to someone kind of going after those as well if your business is in trouble.
Not ideal.
No.
It's the worst case scenario. So
Yes.
damage control, just have two accounts, transfer it from this one to that one. At the very least, we can back end pay the taxes for a draw.
Yep.
Right.
So the other thing is the IRS, it's very frowned upon from them too. They hate it.
Kind of a red flag type of
Very
scenario.
much.
Right. But I mean, that's the ability to quote write things off. That's people think of that as this magical term, right? Like abracadabra, right?
Yep.
You
Poof, it goes away.
can just write it off. Yeah, that's what a lot of non-business owners, like somebody's got to spend that money.
Correct.
And it's me.
Yes. Well, one, you have to make the money. The business has to make the money, and then now it has to go away. And yes, and you want to do it legally and ethically. You don't want to just write things off to write things off. So it has to be a practical expense for the business in order for it to
So
be
what's the
written off.
best process to follow? If somebody's like listening and they're like, shit, I'm kind of sort of doing sketchy stuff. Like, how do they slowly start doing less sketchy things and like get
That
on
happens.
point?
Yeah. So knowing and understanding the rules and the laws, knowing what's good and what's bad, talking to your professionals. So talking to, maybe it's a lawyer, maybe it's a tax lawyer, CPA, and a bookkeeper, an accountant, that type of stuff.
Is there like a percent of revenue that is healthy to like kind of carve out for those type of outsourced expenses, like the legal, like finance, legal?
Yeah, typical businesses, you want between 2 and 4% of your revenue to go towards those.
Oh goodness.
Depending on how big it goes.
Just like a type of insurance. I just have to think of it that way.
That's really what it is. Because now they're in charge of filing things. They're in charge of doing the things right. So now you get audited. What's the cost of that? It's your time, it's the fees, it's the fines, it's all that kind of going into.
Some of it is like part of the reason I put people in place personally is so that like they can keep the boogeyman, the audit guy away. Like their job is to make sure that I don't get boogeymaned, right? So if you're trying to like be an accountant for yourself, plus go and run a business and learn what it takes to sell and like scale that, you kind of got to learn two businesses, and it's really like a tripping over dollars to pick up pennies type of thing.
It is. Yeah.
Is there a fear of talking to somebody else about their financial situation that maybe plays
Constantly.
into it?
People are
Where people
afraid-
like lie to you and shit?
I wouldn't say they lie. I would say they're ashamed. They're embarrassed. They don't.
Apologizing and
Yeah,
stuff. Very
apologizing.
Minnesotan.
Yep. I'm sorry for
I'm
all
so
the mess.
sorry.
Yep. Some of that's kind of comical, but some of it's just very psychological too, where they are actually embarrassed. They are that, where we try to take the approach that, you know what? I guarantee you we've seen worse, and I guarantee you we can help you with something.
It just takes time, right?
It does.
And then are there things that like you can't come back from?
Some tax issues.
You just
If you don't have the money in the business and you're taking too much personally, or it's just not profitable, for a very long period of time, that can be very devastating to a business.
Some people don't even realize they're not profitable
Until it's too late.
because they don't actually have, like, every time tax season comes, like they're like, oh my gosh, I got this big tax bill. Now they got this hole they got to dig out and pay themselves out of.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's summer and now season's going. I see it all the time in my industry where it's like feast and famine, right? Because there's not actually any financial
Planning.
strategy.
No. Very few kind of accountants or CPAs do tax planning. A lot of them are just for the compliance.
We'll file your taxes.
We'll file your taxes.
Like H&R Block or whatever.
Yep. Or even a lot of CPAs. They're like, yeah, they just do that. They don't take a look or kind of hear what's going on in the business, kind of have those one-to-one conversations before things happen. Before you do anything in a business, you want to talk to someone and say, all right, what are the implications of...
What are those ripples, right?
What are the ripples? What's going to happen if I do X? And that's where I think people go wrong. They do X and then they're like, oh, by the way, I did this. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now here's what you're going to have to pay in taxes. Here's what's going to happen.
Now we got to file this
Yes.
document or that.
I
thing.
just took out 50 grand out of my 401k.
Don't do that. It's not a recommendation.
Yeah, this is what's going to happen next. So talk before you do.
And like ask those questions on the front end. Ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure, right?
Yeah.
So really people come to you with like this thing they're trying to do, vehicle financing or purchasing a building, whatever, and then you like ask them like, well, have you thought about this? And like almost like poke holes in it to get them to like think further about it.
Yeah, you can do a cost analysis, so you can, basically a pro-con list, but financially say, all right, well, what is the implication of that purchase going to do to my business, and how is that going to change the cash flow, good or bad?
And not like too overcomplicated of a process if you just like take some time and have somebody with a little bit of.
Correct. It can be simple, but it can also be very complex depending on the business. Because people think sometimes they oversimplify things, and depending on if it's a fixed cost or a variable cost, that can kind of get swayed one way or the other, and that can change your ratios very quickly.
So that's like the Dunning-Kruger effect almost, where people think they're better or more aware of something than they actually are.
I've seen that happen a lot too. Oh, there's been many times, this will be very simple.
Oh, we've done it this year.
Oh, this will be a piece of cake, and then you dive into it. It's like, what on earth happened here? Okay, this is going to take 20, 30 hours to, fix. It's not just
what the hell takes that long? A lack of what was the word you used? Reconciling.
That happens a lot.
You just got to go back through every transaction, pretty much, right?
Yes, absolutely. Or what happens is they commingle accounts. So whether it's the personal and the business, but sometimes it's business and the business. So they'll move from a credit card to the bank, from the bank to the credit card, and they think they hit the right buttons on the accounting software, and it's wrong, and it creates more issues.
I probably do that to my accountants. Probably pisses them off sometimes. So do you work with accountants then?
Yep, we work with.
But you also have an accountant in-house now.
We do.
Tell me about that.
It's been a great
adding capabilities, or like what's the thought process there?
Adding different complexities to kind of answering those complex questions those employees or the business clients have. So maybe they just have some tax questions. We can help them with those. Maybe it's actually just filing a return, or they just need that next degree of information.
So are you working with like CEOs and CFOs? Is that
most of the time we're working with the business owners? So yeah, they are typically the CEO. They can be the CFO depending on the different structures.
Is there like a business size that you've kind of found a niche with?
No, we've dealt with very, very large businesses, 10, 20, 100, over 100 million, or very small. So I would say on average, it's probably between maybe $1 million to $4 million, or right around that. So I would say that's the average size of most businesses that we deal with.
Okay. So like so that's kind of where you're at right now. You've only been doing this for 4 years.
Yeah.
What's going on in the next 5 years? You're kind of in that visionary role yourself, right? You're supporting tons of business owners, helping them figure their financial shit out, right?
Basically, what we want to do is we want to go into that more problem-solving kind of category. So,
tell me what you mean.
Yeah, we'll help you file your taxes. We'll help you with your bookkeeping or your payroll. We'll help you with very black and white things. But now, what is that business doing with that information? That's what we want to help.
Like the data management?
The consulting. So helping out with, maybe they need help with tax strategies. Maybe they just need operational strategies, or they have some HR issues, things like that.
You guys do all that?
We do.
You do HR?
A little bit.
All right. Give me your pitch on Three Pillars again. Tell me all the things, the services you provide to business owners.
So it's kind of from start to finish, everything that the business would need on the back end. So it would be their daily accounting. It would be some payroll, HR functionings. It could be the taxes. It could be just some operational things that they need help with. So it's the fractional CFO, fractional COO, or fractional controller.
So is that like part of the model then? People pay you a set figure per month, and then you just take care of the shit for them?
Basically, yeah, we'll figure out the scope of what they want done, and then we'll figure out a monthly cost of that. So and then it can kind of come up and down depending on when they add or subtract things.
Okay, so are you working like all around the Twin Cities, just in like 4
so we're in 17 other states right now.
Tell me about how there's so much. You have so many stories, Alex. Like, tell me. So 17 other states.
Yes.
Is that just people that also have overlap here in Minnesota?
So that has happened with a few. Or sometimes it's just other people that either hear about us or have a friend that has a business in another state that needs help.
Is it like niched? Like,
no. It's all referral.
Do people find
growth.
Bookkeepers like Google searches, or?
Yep. Yeah, it's very, very remote.
Fascinating.
Driven.
I would
Yeah.
never hire a bookkeeper off of a Google search.
Yeah. We get very little out of the Google, but we get very much out of the referrals and the networking.
And why does somebody refer you?
Because they either worked with us and they like us and we've helped them and they think that we can help their friend or their other business owner.
Or you're like, or they identify, hey man, your business is kind of messed up. You should probably get somebody to help you figure this out.
Yeah.
That first of all, if you're a friend to anybody and you know their business finances are going bad, like the best thing you could do is have that conversation with them. Because like ignoring that, especially if you're running any type of business, like the financial discussion can be difficult, but sometimes people, like when there's like this obliviousness going on, like if they don't know and nobody says anything, what's the thing that's going to trigger them to think about it? And
when they look in their bank account and it's empty.
Yeah, I'd rather just have like some good friends around me that could like bring that to my attention.
Yeah.
So what are like the red flags where you're like, hey, Mr. Guy who just started a lawn mowing company or whatever it might be, you should get a bookkeeper.
You should look at that. Well, maybe you don't know what you're doing. So maybe you're new to the business and you don't understand the financial side of it. So that's a great one. Or maybe you haven't hired anyone or you haven't done any of your book work for a very long time. Or maybe something's changing. Now you went from a solo owner to now I want to hire employees. And how does that look? Because now you have all these other different compliance issues that are going to change. So that any change in a business is a great time to look at it. Or they have some cash flow issues. Maybe they think that they should have a lot more profit and they don't. Or they're looking at a loan and the loan got turned down for some sort of reason. Why and how they can improve that. Maybe fast forward a couple of years and try again.
So let's define what a cash flow issue looks like, because there might be some people that are experiencing that don't even really know. So you can't go get a loan or finance something. That's one. You don't have money in your account. That's kind of a clear cut one.
Yeah.
Like, are there other like kind of hints?
High cost of goods, high labor costs.
As a percent of gross revenue?
Absolutely. So that's why knowing and understanding where your percentages should be and measuring them compared to where they are is very important. So your KPIs.
So how do you coach people to fix it if it's out of whack?
Basically,
like you have to like systemically change the business, right?
Sometimes maybe it's just price changing. Maybe it's restructuring employees and how they're acting, or maybe it's some sort of technology that they're missing that they haven't brought into the business.
So the coaching is almost built into that part of it.
It really is.
You charge for that?
A lot of it's just a loss leader. We just want to help. So we'll do the bookkeeping and then most of the time just answer random questions here and there for people.
Well, and the other thing that I know you're a big advocate of is like helping people educate themselves. Like you guys got a gang of books over there in your office, or like are you like give those away to people, right?
Give them away, yeah, absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about all the books and like where that kind of started from.
Really, we just had a big wall when we moved into that spot. We're like, well, what should we put there? And let's make it books. And so
now, this is obvious, guys. Books.
Yeah, it was just books. So it's like, where did I learn a lot of my knowledge is reading a lot. So knowing and understanding what is out there and what other people are doing, because a business today is not really that much different than a business 100 years ago. Yeah, there's things that are a lot different, but most of the time it's making money. It's turning a profit.
Well, and like with all that, like the quality of life is such an important part of being a business owner. Like you can make money and like be overworked, or you can like not work hard enough and then like be in this pit of like not making enough money, right? It's like, have you seen people go from like this emotional ball of chaos to like a better place through just like figuring out their finances?
Like, should I keep doing my business to the next year? Like, holy crap, how am I going to pay for all these taxes?
Which means they made money.
They made a lot of money, a huge turn.
What changed with that?
Processes, procedures, kind of figuring out what's going on in the business, what's driving their business, figuring out what is costing them the money, what are they losing on. So maybe it's a certain product line or certain service that they're doing that they're losing, but others they're winning on. So figuring out that on a very granular level, figuring out what's working and what's not.
So, and then like some of that has to go into growth too, right? So when it comes to like the growth component, like the sales and marketing, does that part, the growth oriented thought process, put businesses in a traumatic situation as well from a cash flow standpoint?
It can. Yeah. Growth can really hurt a business, especially if they grow too fast. Because now maybe they're adding too many employees and the oversight's not there, the controllables aren't there, or they just don't have, maybe it's a retail place where they're buying all this product, but they don't have the cash to cover the payments of those products until they sell it. So they're buying and trying to grow too fast, but they can't push it out fast enough, or they're not collecting the money. A lot of times the AR, the accounts receivable, can be a very struggle for a lot of businesses too.
It's my least favorite KPI. Like nobody, like we're like auto bill type of monthly like SaaS model almost. And it like from a customer service standpoint, like simplifying the purchasing side of things, it makes their experience with you better. And then you actually get paid for the thing that people are calling you for, right?
It makes both sides easier.
Like so many businesses overlook it because again, it's that financial component. And like, that is the point at which the money was yours and now it becomes mine. And for whatever reason, there's like this emotional attachment there, but it's also, when it comes to business, the expectation and prerequisite to doing business.
Absolutely.
You have to pay me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just doing stuff for free.
Yep.
I've definitely failed there before.
We all have.
Oh, so yeah, they'll pay me. They're good for it. But not to mention they're going to send you a check. Then you got to take that check to wherever your bank is. You got to make sure it gets deposited. And now you're adding all these layers. I think I saw somewhere that it's like each check you deposit can cost a business like $30.
Sure.
Like per check.
With all the time and all the
handling, like process, like how many, think of it, like check comes in the mail to my office. We have to go get it from the mail. We had to wait, first of all, to get it. Then we had to go get it from the mailbox, bring it, process it, handle the payment. Then from there, we have to take that and either put it to wait again for the day that it goes and gets deposited, or we have to have some system that now we're paying more to deposit. Like now it's like all these other processes built off of this thing because of emotional attachment to that transaction.
Yep.
Do you love credit card on file for businesses?
That can work really well. However, there's some liability with it, which a lot of people don't understand.
What do you mean?
If you're holding someone's credit card, are you allowed to do that? And do you have the right documents and kind of procedures in place to keep that secure? What happens if you get broken into? What happens if they get stolen from an employee or another vendor or something? Now you're liable.
Yeah, because that liability comes onto you, but there are third parties that can kind of absorb that.
Yes.
That's best case scenario,
correct.
right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So moving forward, you're going to continue to grow and scale. You're huge in the Forest Lake area. Your wife's been a teacher, and now she runs kind of a hub of like community. I like to see.
She loves being involved in the community and the teenagers, and just being there for them.
And she's kind of always had a heart like that.
She has.
Right. So you two both have kind of that like servant's mentality, which I mean, it's no wonder why everybody in Forest Lake and the surrounding areas loves you. So we ask a few questions to everybody when they come on here. Obviously, I've just been peppering you for the last hour. But one that we ask everybody is about the word hustle and what that word means to them in terms of business. So what's that word mean to you, Alex?
Hustle means kind of run. It's just going, not necessarily without stopping, but just kind of keep moving and keep pushing forward. Don't let the negative or issues kind of stop you from moving forward.
Because they're inevitable, right?
Ups and downs happen in everything.
That's great. So anyone that wants to get in contact with you or come visit Big Apple Bagels, like how do they reach out to you for accounting and bookkeeping? And
yeah, they can reach us. My email is alex@threepillaraccounting.com, all spelled out. Or they can give us a call, 651-899-2002, to visit Big Apple, just Google Big Apple Bagels, Forest Lake, and you'll find the address.
And right across from there is a big purple building. That's Abracadabra.
That's you.
That's where we're sitting right now. And thank you so much for coming out here today,
you.
Alex. Man, you've got so much experience, and like how many businesses and business owners I've been able to see you interact with over the years and help them like figure their stuff out. It brings me a lot of energy to see like how somebody can be impacted with just little tweaks like that. Yeah. So appreciate you coming on here. Thanks everybody for joining us on the Homegrown Hustle. As always, feel free to like and share every episode. We put a lot of effort and work in behind the scenes to make this as valuable for you as possible. So if you can like and share those different platforms and join the community, we'd love to continue to grow that and hopefully inspire the learning and process within the local business communities we serve. Alex, you're the man. Look forward to seeing more of you. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks again for joining us on Homegrown Hustle. Our local business community thrives because of the brilliant leaders right here in our backyard. And it's been an absolute privilege to provide them with a platform to share their invaluable expertise. Stay tuned for more insight, wisdom, and inspiration from our local business champions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Together, we'll continue to nurture and expand our homegrown success stories. Matt Eichmann signing off until our next insightful episode.